Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from. This is the Awesome Journey, and we're actually a couple minutes early today, you
Yeah, I
guys.
know. That was a lot faster than it usually is.
Yeah,
Okay.
so went a little faster, but hey, nonetheless, here we are. So happy Tuesday, and welcome to our show. Again, the Awesome Journey. That threw me off a little bit because we went live quickly. And today, and we say it every week, of how amazing our guests are, and just really how we get to bring people from all walks of life, truthfully. And it's so wonderful for us, and we're so blessed. And today is extra special because our guest is Sherry Anshara, who, you guys, she's incredible. And I say that as she's a speaker, an international best-selling author. She's the founder of the Anshara Institute. She is an intuitive renowned medical intuitive. Apologies for spinning that around. As a speaker, and she was also Christy's coach at one time, and that's how we know her. And this is just going to be an incredible conversation, y'all, because I think everybody's looking for ways to heal themselves away from medicines of the the pill form, or just having other options and finding some peace maybe within themselves. And Sherry is that person and has created some amazing tools that everybody can use, and has done just amazing things, y'all, for people, and has some incredible statistics to share. And I tell you, we'll only scratch the surface today because there is so much. And we were just talking even before, we're like, we already know we have to have you back. But before we turn it over to Sherry, which we're so blessed to have you with us today, I will turn it over to my co-host in care, Christy Howard.
Oh, I'm so excited. If it wasn't for Sherry, I wouldn't be sitting here being who I am today. I've known Sherry for probably as long as I've known you, Kelly, the days of Arizona. And I worked with Sherry for 5 years, 6 years, I can't remember. But she...
Don't make me cry.
I know. She's my mentor. I love her, and how she helped me. You know, I've been very honest about the battles of depression and hanging on to stuff and always wearing that mask and looking outside of myself. She gave me tools. She taught me tools, and yeah, I mean, I'm just going to give it over to Sherry. Yes, you all know that I will be interrupting because I know her story, and I wanted to go where it's so many.
You know, your interaction with her.
Well, I interrupt anyway.
Cool.
There's so many different dynamics that I want people to understand, that especially now with medicine, us feeling sick, what's going on. And a lot of times it's my clients and those who know, I always say, get out of your head. Well, that came from her. Yes. I have a lot of Sherryisms that, you know, wordology is your biology, all that stuff. So, Sherry, thank you.
Yes, and I do want to add in right before this, y'all, she has more energy than probably all of us combined. And I just want to tell you that. She's incredible.
You're 80, correct?
I know.
She's 80.
Somebody lied. I was in my mother's womb for like about 30 years.
But see, what happens is when we figure out all the stuff that you teach, I don't look like I'm 62.
No, you don't have to age. You don't have to age.
No, you don't.
It's a belief system. It's a BS. It's a bullshit program.
Exactly. So Sherry, start with how you realized you were an intuitive, but the medical intuitive part, and how you started teaching the classes in your beautiful home in the back. I mean, her house is like, you walk in, you're like, I never want to leave. The energy is so great. But, you know, and you can pull in me as an example because I was a shit show. I was a mess. I was depressed. I was, you know, wearing masks. But I looked good. I always had really cute outfits and shoes.
You did.
Now I'm flip-flops and I don't care.
We share the shopping genes.
This is true.
This is a Sherryism. Everything on this planet, is addiction. Everything on this planet except shopping, everybody, is a hobby. Okay, there you have it.
There you go. So share with us. Tell it. Start, and then we'll go all over the place. But first, I'm going to say Leslie's here. Tom. Golden Shield People podcast. Jay Dobbins will be showing up this week over there. Eugene, who has been a guest of ours twice. So, and Sherry will too. So it's all yours, Sherry. Let's go for it.
Okay. So really, I always see intuition is all of our natural abilities to discern what is correct for us and what is not. That's all it is. There is no right or wrong. Please, let's everybody get rid of that. Because I could say, Christy, I'm right and you're wrong, or you're wrong and I'm right, or whatever the hell it is. So it's about belief systems. And I teach non-duality. Duality is good and bad, high and low, my way or the highway, blah, 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 blah. And so I was always this way and drove my mother crazy. And so I would actually tell her when I was 3 years old, who are you people? And people would say, how did you have this vocabulary? I was raised by 3 teenagers. So I never spoke baby talk. I spoke teenage-ese. So I was very adult for my age, and I drove my teachers crazy because I asked questions and they didn't have the answer. And then I knew we had problems.
Okay, so Sherry has a picture when she was a little girl, and her picture, very cute little girl, and it's going like this.
Yeah, almost to Santa Claus. That's just like I'm sitting there and I got my hand in my hip looking at this perfect Santa Claus going,
flipping it off.
Like, who are you? Like, are you crazy? And I told my mother after that, please don't take me to see Santa Claus, because they told me that God was a white Anglo-Saxon with a beard sitting on a throne, and he had a list. He was checking it once and checking it twice. So I told my mother I was off his list. Don't take me back. Honest to God. Is that funny? I said, I'll pick out my presents. You wrap them up. I'll open. You'll be surprised, because don't waste something. And isn't that crazy? But anyway, so looking at things from that in 1991. And so my mother didn't get what I was doing. I'm not wronging her. She didn't. So I got this favorite handle in my family. Sherry, where did you come from? So what we've done, we all have intuition. Again, it's our natural ability to discern, is this correct or not? So in 1991, I had a third of 5 near-death experiences. I'm called the in and out burger. I go in, I go out, and I have to tell everybody, the reason I can't get it in heaven and hell, I can't remember the damn passwords. I don't know what the problem is. So I'm laying in the bed in this hospital in Connecticut. I was visiting, lived in Michigan. It was in the corporate world, whatever. And so the doctors, they were lovely. They were lovely, but they predicted. They weren't psychics. They just told me you're going to be a mess, because I had a broken neck and a broken back and a smashed head and a brain out of place. My brain was out of place. Nobody knew it at the time. And that was my bonus. Honest to God, having my brain out of place. So I had my head out of my assets that weren't working. That was the first. So the first pop was my head coming out. And I always tell everybody, your first hemorrhoid is your head. And no wonder you have back problems.
Because we usually have our head up our ass.
Oh yes, God. Exactly. And so I'm laying there and I'm considering, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to work? How am I going to earn any, all the blah, 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 blah. And so I'm laying there and I thought, well, my brain's, a mess. I know it. My head's smashed. So there has to be something smarter in the body than what it is. And this is hilarious. This will crack you up. So in the idea that we have AI now, artificial intelligence, well, guess what? I teach NI, natural intelligence, that I couldn't talk about then. And so my body said to me, because I teach NEL, non-emotional listening now, because of that. And my body gave me these 2 words, cellular memory. Cellular memory. So after that, so I got up out of the hospital, I called a cab, and the doctors are going, you can't leave. I go, I'm leaving. I have to take a cab to Hartford, Connecticut, which was about an hour and a half away from where I was, and fly home. And they said, but you're a mess. I said, I know, but I'm on to something. And so cellular memory is who we are. So the minute the sperm hits the egg, your nose knows to be a nose cell, and your toe knows to be a toe cell, or else we have a fingernail at the end of the nose. So what I teach is practical natural intelligence to heal. So all of the stuff like depression and anxiety and cancer, whatever it is, I have discovered through natural intelligence the emotional core. All illness is emotional. I don't care what it is. And if someone tells me, well, if your family has it, you have it. Look, I have a family. I don't have what they had because they're individuals. I don't have to have what they have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if it doesn't make sense, so when I started talking about cellular memory, the doctor said, take a pill, you're okay. Let's get you to a psychiatrist. I go, are you kidding me? They're crazier than me. I'm only kidding.
That's true.
So anyway, so the serious part about it, as I began to start writing a book, my first book in 91. Now, please, I know what it is to do lack. And I found out there's 3 fears: self-judgment, self-lack, and self-takeaway. That's their dimension that we call this planet. It's baloney. And so when I was looking at things from an observer standpoint, I could see patterns. I could see profiles and then behaviors and roles. And because of those tools and this natural intelligence in the body, my clients have gotten rid of cancer, which is eating yourself up alive. And people said, Sherry, it's too simple. Then why are doctors on the board that come to me? One doctor is, yes,
right.
And now doctors are coming to me now, and I have 3 fabulous doctors on the board, and I've created this Anshara Institute of Accelerated Healing. It's ansharainstitute.org to teach this as a profession, a new career, because when I look at the stats that 2 million people will be diagnosed with cancer this year alone, government stats, they're worse, and 600,000 will die. Or 47% of our healthcare providers will be out of the system from depression, anxiety, cancer, burnout, and suicide. And those are the professionals. Who's going to care for the patients? So this institute is to show people, teach people, and whatever it is, empower people with these tools that I've been doing for 31 years in healing my own body. And so I am grateful for my own experiences because I had to use myself as the guinea pig. It was a lot better than using some. So Christy was not my guinea pig. She is awesome because she got the tools. And you know how she got the tools? By one word, willingness. It was her willingness to get her head out of her assets that weren't working and say, shit, why waste our time? I even teach what time is. I taught them to physicists, and they said, how did you figure this out? I go, you're the freaking physicist. You're supposed to know this. And they said, gee, and I have to laugh. One of my doctors, he told me, and he's a neurologist because I like to make sure my head's still good. And so we were laughing one day, and he goes, God, you're like 3,000 years in the future. And I said, well, damn it, catch up. And we laughed. He goes, so I teach really the physiology and anatomy of how the body works. But guess who gets it first? Guess who gets it the best? Kids. I work with babies in the womb, and they talk to me. And honest to God, this last baby, he's 6 months old. I work with his sisters. They're 6 and 4, out of sight. He's now 6, and he's talking. And when he was in the womb, he told me coordinates to the universe. You guys, this is the new kids coming on the block. They're not crystal kids or blue kids or yellow kids or whatever kids. They are what I call the new kids on the block, and they are non-duality conscious. And so working with their parents, they've not had shots, and they are healthier than healthy, and they're brilliant. So that's so.
And it goes back to, and I use myself as an, I don't want to say an excuse, to understand that as much as we want to change, it goes back into the fear. You're also attached to that comfortability.
Yes.
Right.
And I remember one of the classes, and I don't remember my childhood. I mean, because of the depression, there are bits and pieces of it. That's again, and I don't really remember. Well, I do remember my 20s, but it just, when you go through the depression and the stuff that I went through, you tend to block out things. Yes. And I remember being in the studio and going through a session of what she was teaching. And it was just sort of like an awakening for me, like, holy shit. And once I awoke from all that crap, it was out of my cells. So I've learned through the years that we all have triggers. You know, somebody's going to judge me, or that, you know, I'm going to have this job, and oh, this is what they're thinking, because that's just human. That's just human. And I learned through the years of utilizing the tools that no, I don't need to go through those kind of things. I mean, it's because I myself have the power within me. And when I feel those triggers, I can understand what they are. And, you know, this is Sherry talk, but I can cut that cord. I can cut that, you know, tear up that contract that I have with that person, that family member, or what, you know, ex-husband or whatever, and just let it go. And just yes, it's still part of your journey, but you just let it go because it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things that you hit on, and this is something to me that I find so intriguing. I've never been one that's into medication. Like if I go to a doctor and they want to throw pills at me, I'm like, you're not for me. Because my feeling is always like, you're masking the problem, you're not fixing it. So if I have severe pain, granted, I'm not saying every once in a while you might need to take a little something, but not to live on. And I take nothing. I take vitamins, or, you know, just in teas and that sort of thing. But talking about the cellular level, because this is a thing I think most people can really understand, because of fitness and people eating themselves healthy. Like, I know people that have turned their life around when they were on the path of death, and they told all the doctors, screw you, I'm not taking any of this stuff anymore, and went down a path of, I'm going to try this, changing my eating. And now they're healthy and doing fantastic. But the cellular level is how that changes, because the stress of depression, of any kind of, you know, and I think the world is exacerbated with mental health struggles because of 2020 and on. And so I think that's an interesting thing, if you could get into that maybe a little bit more, because I think people do get that, the cellular level, and how you approach that with your clients.
Okay, for number one, pain in the body is the body's attempt to get our attention. And so what do we do with pain? Then we take something to cover it up, and the pain gets worse. And then we take some. So what is happening at the cell level is that the molecules, particles, and cells at the subatomic level are in stress. And it's all based on emotionality, which is physicality. It's physicality. So for instance, depression is deepest disappointment, or cancer is eating up yourself alive. Anxiety is unrealistic expectations. So I can go on and on. So when we have pain in the different parts of the body is looking for you to pay attention. Mm-hmm. And so the body communicates. That's why I teach NEL, non-emotional listener. And I guide people. I don't heal them. When people ask me if I'm a healer, I go, that's an Australian sheepdog. I teach you how to heal yourself. And humor is the best medicine to get started, because it's not frequency and vibration. Its resonance is the key. So if we are resonating to being a victim of any kind, then we lower our resonance, which lowers our immune system. Wherever our body is the weakest or has challenges, you know, through genetics or whatever it is, then what happens is then that dis-ease, and because we have a belief system in our left computer brain that goes to the right male side, non-gender, we recreate. I call that the Elizabeth Taylor syndrome. She married the same man 8 times. Her son became her, and she had become her mother. So her father was an abuser, and so she married all alcoholic drug addicts, and 4 of her best friends were gay, and some of her husbands. But she was attempting to fix them. We can't fix anybody. We're not, I'll use Christy's word and mine and yours, we're not fucking tubes of crazy glue. We can't fix anybody.
And the problem is we always want to fix them.
Yes, and you can't. And when you do,
we can be there for them, but we can't fix them.
No, and you take away their power. So that's why I teach wordology is your biology, but you have to know your own language first. And so that the cells, I have pictures of cells that, that doctors sent me from 10-year-old technology. And so now my clients, and I'll give you an example. There was a young gal that came to me that had been diagnosed with Lyme's disease at 14. She is now 24. One of her persons that she works with that does cleaning of the blood and that. And she said, you've got to go to Sherry. So she's here becoming a nurse. So to make a long story short, her Lyme's disease is going away. And they told her it would never happen. So guess what happens? So she's learned the tools to be in her power, and she's going to make an awesome nurse. She may become one of our, holistic Anshara facilitators. So anyway, so she goes back to New Jersey for Christmas, and she had a little bit of a relapse. She went in the hospital and they almost killed her. We're not blaming them, but she stood her ground and said, you cannot put these chemicals in me. You cannot. If you put these chemicals in me, because what happened, her port got infected, on her way home and traveling and whatever. And so the doctors wrote down that she was psychotic. Psychotic. So this weekend we had a fundraiser, and she doesn't like to talk in front of people. She's really shy. She got up there and said, if it wasn't for Angie that was cleaning my blood, and if it wasn't for Sherry Anshara that taught me the tools, and it was a year ago and I didn't know them, I would be dead, because I would have allowed them to and we did some research, and the chemicals that they called medicine that they were going to put in her body would have killed her. Oh,
now in that instance too, is that her intuition that you also told her to listen to?
Yes, Kelly, right on. And that's what, and so they told her, and on her paperwork, it says she's psychotic and requires to go on psychotic drugs. What?
That's not.
And you should see her now. And she used to have really dark circles, and that's starting to go away because the cellular memory knows how to generate what it is. Again, your body has NI, natural intelligence. I'm not against AI, but I am for NI, natural intelligence of who you are. But you have to know, and that's why we teach the tools. And that's why we're creating a new career or a new profession or someone who would just love to come and know themselves inside out.
Well, and I also know that with myself, once I, got through the tools, I'm the healthiest I've ever been.
Yes.
I mean, it just, it's just where it goes back to, and people hear me say it all the time. I have the power of whatever comes my way and how to deal with it without getting in my head, having the head up the ass, or, being poor, pitiful me. Yeah, we're allowed to do poor, pitiful me once in a while.
Yes.
But where's it going to get you?
Exactly.
So when you have the power, you can say, hey, this is my life, and I'm not going to take these pills. I'm not going to do this stuff. Or I'm seeing that I'm talking to a family member that used to always just make me where I felt unworthy, unloved. And, that goes back to why my whole depression and everything like that. And realizing that it doesn't, when that little trigger might still be there, but it's so small that it just doesn't even bother, it's like, wow, I don't react like I used to.
Right,
And
I think it's
they have an issue. They're not used to you, not
reacting.
Oh, exactly.
And so I teach responding. Because react is Act 1, Scene 2, Act 12, Scene 500. So when you don't react and you respond, then it's really up to them. You're not giving your power away, but you're also, the reason we get burned out is we're taking on their energy that is being emitted from them. So like we can call it oral, electromagnetic, bioenergy. It's a field. And so we've taught that life is a reflection of us. That is the biggest bullshit program I have ever heard, a reflection. Have you ever had sex with a reflection? Maybe. Have you ever rode around the street in a reflection?
I am not going to go there because I have a good comeback, but I'm not going to go
there. I know that. That's why I said yeah for that. So life is a projection of us. It's, like I wrote a book. So if it was a reflection, it wouldn't be a book. You know, it'd be out there in the ethers. Right. So life is a projection. So you have to ask yourself, what am I projecting? So what I've discovered go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, because the whole projection thing and the power, and then the only way I can personally relate to that, because I'm a giver. The worst person I can be with is a taker, which was my ex-husband, which was very controlling, and it exhausted me. Like, it exhausted me over time. And where I found my power to get back, because he was terrible and was not a good human, and I lived in fear. I mean, I believed 100% that at some point in time he was going to take my life, because every threat he had ever given came true, all of them. And I remember the day sitting in a courtroom, and of course I got all cute because, you know, I'm going to be in the courtroom for probably the 20th time with this jackass. But I had finally reached a place where I took my power back. But it was because I went back to my faith, because my faith had taken a back seat during that time period. And so I'm curious too with your, and because I watched a whole bunch of your podcasts that you've done previously and did a lot of reading. And I'm just so fascinated by so much of it, because you do talk about faith, not necessarily religion, but faith being a center, and that does. And when you're standing in that moment, and it's hard, I get chills just even talking about it. Standing in that moment and being able to stand up straight and look at him and see him being this way, you know, slumping over, because it's like, I see you and now you're afraid of me. How the tables have turned. But I don't know what method that there was actually happened, other than I was surrounding myself with people that were supporting me. And I was focused on me fixing my stuff, because I participated in the situation.
Yes.
But it was about my faith and taking that back as my center, and knowing that, God, I don't know where this is supposed to take me, but I believe that this is where I'm supposed to be. And then this is part of my journey. Don't understand why, but I'm rolling with it. And again, standing in that moment and taking your power back, it's something you can't ever describe, and it's like, man, why didn't I do this shit sooner? But there's not really, I don't think, at least in that stage for me, it was just it wasn't like, here's step A, B, C, and D. And I went to a ton of counseling and did a lot of other things for myself too, because I knew I needed to get my cellular level back to a healthy place, because my body was responding to life that it didn't like, because my body did not like it. I had so many issues during that time, physically, and not understanding it. I mean, my intuition, I believe at some points, was screaming for me to get the hell out.
Absolutely. And in what we do, we've been taught to look outside of ourselves for someone to make us. Yep. It can't. That's duality. And so the only three fears in duality are self-judgment, self-lack, and self-takeaway. And so in the teachings that I do, or information sharing, whatever you want to call it, is I give people tools and in becoming that non-emotional observer. But I also teach profiles, behaviors, and roles. And actually, I'm going to be doing in February, I don't remember what the date is, I'm going to be doing, it's going to be online and in person, but it's a relationship course. But the relationship is how do you relate at your ion relation? Ion means at your cellular, relate to yourself first. So if we are running an unconscious, see, the psychiatrists, they're in the subconscious. Man, the subconscious is like, you know, your basement has to be cleaned out, your garage or your drawers or whatever. And, but you have to look where that there it's totally unconscious and you're not aware. There's some inklings that your intuition. So where I assist people is to get to that unconscious belief system programming of duality and get rid of it. That runs us all the time. And that's the clarity. That's the consciousness. And again, I will love it with kids because they're not as programmed. So right. What I do is assist you to unprogram yourself. On means the unification, the UN, and get rid of that programming so you become yourself. It's about the becoming.
Well, and unfortunately, society doesn't want us to be ourselves because they want to have that control. The doctors want to give us the drugs because they want to have that control. And when we decide that, no, we want, and I'm big on saying, I know what I don't know.
Yes.
Because that's my intuition. So it's, and you know, when I even work with clients and do their LinkedIn's, they're like, how did you write my about me? And I'm like, because I've had a conversation, I see your stuff, but I understand you. For some reason, I'm not woo-wish, I'm not a psychic, but my intuition is so strong with the tools, and I listen to it.
Yes. And that's what your intuition is. It's just your natural, innate ability to discern, is this correct for me or is this not correct for me? And so I have to tell you, years ago, I was young and I told my friends I was going to take off in the car and go drive. This is hilarious. And I was just going to drive and they'll say, well, where are you going? I said, I don't know. And that's before cell phones and you had to have maps. And I just said, I'm just going to get in the car and go by myself. And you could. And they said, oh, well, you'll just find where you're going because you're so intuitive. I said, yes, I'll follow the signs. Chicago west, St. Louis south. So that is how practical our intuition is when you follow the correct signs that feel correct, not think correct, or emotion. Does it feel? I teach people how to muscle test. I teach people how to connect left brain, right brain. Kids get it in a minute. And it makes such a difference because if we're only using half our brain, and people say, well, my life is half-assed because your head's up, you're half-assed and so I teach people how to connect both.
Oh my gosh,
the right side is our creative brain. And I teach people how to be Godness, the essence of God. Yahweh is 4 letters.
Right.
Create, implement, manifest, and actualize every moment. So I said, you can create a relationship, a conversation, a function, an event. You even create a fart. And they'll go, what? I said, well, if you eat something and say, this gives me gas, you just did the Godness. You created a fart. Congratulations.
Oh, fantastic analogies.
Wasn't that fun?
Yes.
So much seriousness is to be healthy at whatever age or stages and have a long, productive life, not listening or not hearing the belief systems, the bullshit, and not listening to that bullshit that was ingrained in your body, especially in that left computer brain. And so that's why many of the quantum physicists have really embraced what I'm doing, because they say it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, it's no sense, nonsense. And I'm not interested.
But it also, one of my favorites wordology is your biology, that words, I mean, explain that a little bit more for other people to really get that concept to understand.
Okay, so here I'll give you an example. So let's say this is a cell in my left computer brain, and you are 6 years old, Kelly. I'll use your example. You're 6 years old, and I say to you, you're stupid. Now, are you going to belief system me that you're stupid? Or are you going to believe in yourself at 6 years old that you're stupid? Not stupid.
You're going to take it in from the adult.
Yes. So this molecule of emotion says stupid. And so it starts building in the brain, whatever with the 1 cell and 2 cells that can be connected to your digestive system, your nervous system, your cardiac, your heart, any of the systems in the body, because that's why I teach a really deep anatomy and physiology. That's why we're going to do this all over the world. So you go along and these molecules of emotion are building up. So let's say you go to work for a fast food. At 16, the guy walks in and said, this is stupid. It's not about you. He's just saying the whole thing, and you take it on, it gets over. So let's say you've had all these stupid, your husband, your wife, your mother, somebody, it builds up. So now you have gone to Harvard, and you've gone to Wharton Business School, and you are a mucky muck CFO, 7-figure income, and you are rocking. And so you walk into the boardroom, and there's your report on the table. There's the CEO and the board members, and the CEO gets up and says, your report is stupid. Boom. How old are you? 6
years old. And
guess what happens? The onset, they say it's the onset of cancer, but when did it start? At 6. Or the stroke, when did it happen? 6. So, or fainting or whatever. And that is how dis-ease becomes illness, and it started. So through the Anshara method of accelerated healing at the cellular level, we are able to get to the core original point of causation. And then the person has a choice. So I've assisted people that were going to commit suicide. Well, what is cancer aside or depression aside? Aside means it set yourself aside from life. And now you're going to be full body in life, like Christy. Isn't that cool? So
I had two people that I knew that both had breast cancer. And they both, after working with Sherry, they came back and they said, I know exactly when this started, why, because our body does make ourselves sick. And especially when you're going through depression or, having those triggers of somebody telling you, no, you're not good enough, you're not worthy and everything, you start building those cells up to make you so sick that you don't know. So we go to the doctors and they end up giving us all these drugs, and because they're making a shitload of money, and the pharmacy's making a shitload of money, and they're making a lot of money. But they're not getting healthy.
No,
they're making us sicker.
Yes.
No, and I will share. Sherry will agree. And again, we're all about transparent, and I dance with my skeletons. So when I worked for Sherry, I was going through menopause.
Yes, it was wonderful.
Ooh, that's a good time.
So we're living in Arizona. It's the summertime. My first hot flash at Ivy and Olive. This is whatever. And I'm like, what's going on? So Sherry helped me understand. And so I went to my doctor and they're like, oh, just take Prozac. You'll have to just get over it. And I'm like, no, I hang out with Sherry. I'm like, no. So she had a holistic doctor and he, helped me. And my menopause didn't last as long as other people.
Mine didn't either. And
I was able to understand it.
Yeah, because I think, and the only reason that I had a preconceived notion about that, because my mom, when she went through menopause, she had a female doctor who was a holistic believer. And that was a long time ago. So for her to say, we don't want to give you medication. Women have been going through menopause for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah, just get over it.
Go through it and let's see if you end up having issues, we can address them, but let's not do anything rash. She got through it much quicker. I was the same way in the sense of I went through it quicker. And of course, when I went to the doctor, they were immediately like, well, we need to put you on some hormones. And I was like, well, no, you don't, because I'm not taking them. But what it did do, I will say it did spark depression for me, but I had other things going on in my life at the time as well. And so, but it was interesting in retrospect. I was like, that's the first time in my life that I really felt a depression that I hadn't felt before. I felt depression at other times, but not to that level. And so I don't know, is that something?
I just had the moodiness. Sherry can attest to that. But I also had those hot flashes.
Yes. My moodiness was crying though. I cried at freaking everything. I'm a crier in general, but I mean, I could be in the grocery store and the background music that had nothing to do with anything. And I would be sitting in front of, a can of beans and I'd start crying, not like boo-hooing, but I mean, tears would start running down my face. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with me?
No, there's nothing wrong. And we have holes in our body and the tear ducts are not used as often as they should be because it's a release and a relief. And I went through the change. And I did it with my own tools. And one day my friend said, did you go through a change of life? And I go, oh my God, I did. I didn't notice. Really? And I got so many other things going on because in those experiences, I learned to talk and listen to my body. And so did I have a symptom here or there? But it wasn't dramatic at all. I was too focused on what I would like to do instead of get caught up. So if I got caught up in my broken neck, broken back, smashed head, and the brain out of place, I would be a victim of my own doing. And so I said, okay, so this is the realness of it. This is the realness of it. But what is going on? And so Christy used a fabulous word, the why. So we wonder why we did this. I call that the fork in the road. So in duality, we fork ourselves, but in non-duality and consciousness, we make a new fork. Isn't that fun?
So we're going to change over because Jennifer Kelly wants to know, oh, Sherry, do you have a book? And you are not 80. Wow.
No, I'm not. Actually, I'm not. But I am. But
she's had a few deaths there. And
a few.
And Jen will share all the links of everything that we talk about today, because yes, she has plenty of books, and you'll dig them. I know you will. She's a big yogi, so I know she's completely into what you're talking about, no doubt. And thank you for being here, Jen.
Yes, thank you for asking. I'm so appreciative.
So share with us how you have helped, because Kelly and I are huge advocates, obviously, with mental health, but we're advocates for men's mental health because it's a very hard thing for them to talk, because it's a stigma.
Yes.
And a lot of, and then also, I go all over the place. I work with a lot of people that have been let go from jobs. They work for toxic bosses. And when they're let go, they're going through the PTSD of the situation. So can you share about that?
Yes, PTSD. And actually, they don't want to call it disorder anymore. They would just like to call it whatever. So we all have PTSD in some way or another, and we could call it depression, anxiety, whatever. So I have worked with a lot of soldiers, and actually when they get to that core, and I'm going to share two stories with you. This woman came to me, and she was a colonel in the Pentagon on 9/11. On 9/11. And that triggered PTSD when she was in the Middle East years and years and years ago, before that, when the Shah was going down and all that. And so she witnessed a lot of stuff. So she ended up coming to me, and I've worked with many, many soldiers, many of them, from generals, down to the ground pounders. And when their experiences, and I'm currently now working with someone that's in Israel. And so when we get to the core of what happened, as they become non-emotional observer, they now can see their part, and that they can't save anybody or fix anybody, but they can be productive in the job that they took on. Now, this is the truth. This colonel's husband was a B-52 pilot in Vietnam, B-52 Vietnam. And he couldn't smell or taste. Now, when you are a fighter pilot, you go down, you're killing, you can see it. But when you're up there to B-52, you're just dropping bombs, And so what happened is, when I started working with him, and this is many years later, many, many years later, this smell came out of his body, cellular memorization, and it was chemically. And it took us about, I think, 3 or 4 sessions, which is only 4 hours in all the hours since Vietnam. And so guess what happened? His taste and his smell came back, actually. And what it was guilt. He was operating on the emotionality of guilt in his idea of PTSD, because he knew he was killing people, whatever it was, children, in his idea. But he was above it all because he was in the B-52, not going down and, as a fighter pilot, bombing, you could see people, whatever. But it was his overwhelming guilt, and he got rid of the PTSD. Isn't that just remarkable? And so he was able to address it and talk about it and state it as Neo, and listening to his body, and it went his way. And his wife got rid of hers too. And so I've worked with many soldiers. Matter of fact, one kid, I even have an old video, Justin Webb. This is in 2008. I think it was, or maybe 10. And I
remember that. I was with you.
Yes. And he came back from Iraq, and he was going to commit suicide. He was in bed for a year. He took my weekend class, and we did a few sessions. And within 1 week of that weekend course, guess what happened? He had 3 job offers.
Yep.
And he said, everybody, whether you're in the military. So PTSD can be defined in all different ways, but it's still the cellular memorization that got stuck through the left computer brain, and we're stuck in the past.
Yep.
And that's why I teach what time is. And so it, like the military is in my heart. I used to.
As us too.
I know. And I used to volunteer at a military museum in Michigan.
She used to fly.
I did. And I've actually,
pilot, bought your own plane.
Yes, okay, here's a belief system, but we'll go to the military. When I was 30, I told my mother and sister, who's 12 years older than me, my sister, I was learning how to fly, and they said, "You're a girl and you're too old." I go, "What?" So I bought an airplane. They said,
I love
"How do you buy an airplane?" I go, "How do you buy a car? You put so much down, once a month you get a bill. If you don't pay it, they take it." I go, "It's in my budget, like whatever." But I actually have a stick time and a T-28 and a T-6, and I can't tell you what we did, or I'd have to kill you. We would have so much fun. I'm flying around. These were my World War II buddies that are finally gone. And so I've actually refueled a B-52 from a KC-135 that was put together by a Marine woman general years ago. But my heart is with the military because of the things that they see, and they're supposed to, like suck it in and whatever. And that's what creates the PTSD. They can't address the emotionality of it. And
especially when they're men. Because they're not supposed to. They're the ones that came back from Vietnam, and then it just kept on going. And then we've got our first responders, and we've got, our undercover guys, men and women. But what I share from what I learned from you, when I have people that are, dealing with PTSD of leaving a toxic boss and starting back where they're afraid, like, I need this job. I'm afraid that I'm going to have somebody like how it was before. And I'm like, but you're putting your past into your future.
Yes.
You're already making up a story in your head that you're already, you're already destroying. You're already putting the end to your future.
Yes.
Right,
and to understand that prophecy. and what I've learned a lot too, some bad things do happen to you.
Yes.
But you don't get over it. You go through it to understand, not to understand, because you might not always understand, but to clear yourself.
Yes.
To shut the, see, you taught me well. You taught me well. But to see and then not to even really look back. But if you do, you can see that you're stronger and you're healthier than where you were before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and I think I'm sorry.
No, I just ask a real basic question over all of that. Because it seems, and I just want your input on this, is why is it so difficult for us as individuals, because I believe that this is a truth, to let go of our guilt and our shame?
Well, the reason we hold on to that is because that's a duality belief system, that we're not good enough, that we don't have any worth or value. So if we are in our emotional trauma drama, then we can be the story, because the idea is telling the story. Mm-hmm. So through our methodology here, you can share your experience from Neo's standpoint instead of the emotionality of the past, because your left computer brain doesn't know what time it is. Remember, at 6 years old, you're stupid, and now you're the CEO in your 50s or CFO in your 56, because your brain doesn't know what time it is. So I ask you to spell the word time. Spell it. Spell the word. Now split it in half. What does it spell? Timey.
Yeah, it does.
And if you turn it around, it's emit. So it's how you get tied up. So here's a Sherryism.
And it's not a bondage. Well, it could be a bondage.
Yeah, And what did you bond?
That's a different conversation.
So you can't change the past. It's 1 second ago, but you can change your future, and it's 1 second from now.
Interesting. And I all of this too, because I did not discover until, and it was probably about 10 years ago, that there was something that happened significant in my childhood that was still in my life. And I had no idea like how big it was still carrying. But it also made me recognize, again, and part of that baggage was that I'm not good enough. Because that was what started. And that I had spent so much of my life proving that unconscious, I'm not good enough bullshit, trying to prove it wrong. That's why I worked so hard in the corporate world to gain certain status. I want this title. I want to do it. Not only, but it was me proving myself wrong. It had nothing to do, because when I got to the top, when I was like, I finally made executive director, look at me doing all the things that everybody said I couldn't, yay me. But I was sitting there feeling like, this kind of sucks. Like I felt so unfulfilled. But and that's when it all started to come out. It had to do with, because you've only been doing it to prove the part of you're not good enough wrong.
Yes, and it doesn't work. And it keeps us stuck in the past, wherever we took in the idea, belief system of not good enough. So whatever age or stage, that's running the show. It doesn't matter what your real age is. And so that's what happens. And Christy knows, she's living proof. That's the power of it. And I remember some of the things, not going to get personal here with Christy, that they told her that she couldn't do or she wouldn't do. And Christy, did I ever say that to you ever?
Nope.
No, I said, yes, you can. Oh, no, you can't do that. Christy, yes, you can. And Christy believed in herself. So it's the difference between
finally.
Yes, and the believing. Believing is different resonance than the belief system.
Because we have masks, Kelly. You knew me before.
Yeah,
I had a great mask. I was confident. I wore I was strutting, everything like that. But behind that mask,
yes,
I didn't know who the fuck I was. I was depressed. That's why I moved every 2 to 4 years, because it was just sort of like, it's not working here. I'm being depressed again. I'm going to go move. But the problem is, the shit still goes with you.
You can't outrun it. It always catches you.
Absolutely, until you face it and just say, I need to clear this stuff out. And so, working with Sherry those times for years of understanding my childhood, but there's nobody, and I'm not blaming anybody.
That's right.
Because they didn't know. My family didn't know. But, we only know what we know to practice, to go forward. And so when I go through situations with family members, friends, one thing I am is I'm very authentic and transparent. I'm not blaming them. I'm letting them know my feelings, because I spent my whole life not being allowed to show my feelings because it didn't matter. At least I thought it didn't matter. Right. Because I gave my power away. But when we have our power, our feelings, our thoughts do matter. Yes. If we just have that conversation without the blame game.
Yes, which is the be lame game. And I teach people to cancel the contracts, the con of the tracks, and make agreements. So you can agree to agree, or you can agree to disagree. Right. But the contracts are the con jobs. And so what happens is we're always trying to fit in, having a fit. And you do fit in, but this is about fitting in yourself at the cellular level. If someone agrees with you, great. And if they don't, great. It's okay. So I'll just share this quick story. I had been on stage and I was presenting, and I was pretty happy about it. So I went down, I was by the speaker's table, and this lady came up to me. And she said, Sherry, you're a bitch. Now, I didn't know her. So instead of getting into like, I'm a bitch, you're a bitch, and getting sucked into her field, I smiled and I said, in wordology is your biology. Bitch means being the itch. I wonder what's bugging you. You're blaming on me. It's all about you. But thanks for the compliment. And she said, I don't know you. And I said, you might have missed your chance.
I love that. And I had a similar situation, but it's the same thing of knowing when people project on you, it's not about you.
It's not about you. They're looking in the mirror. They're looking in the mirror, not liking what they see, and so they're going to blame it on you. So when, where I go to church, he made a comment once, and again, I'm not Bible thumping but it sticks with me. Hurt people hurt people.
Yes, true.
For those who want to say ugly things to you, because they're hurting, they want you to hurt.
Yes.
And I once had a review at the office at a company I worked at, and I had the HR person there because I was having issues with this manager, and he said, Christy, you intimidate people. That used to bother me so much because I've been hearing that for years. Well, what's wrong with me that I intimidate? And that HR person said, you just gave her the best compliment you could, because that's your issue. not hers.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, now it's like that, you know. So it's the thinking that if somebody says something, it's about you, but it's not.
No, it's never about you. It's never about you.
And that's why not taking it personal and personalizing it. Personalizing it, you're in your power. And that's what I said. But if you take it personal, we actually then screw ourselves.
Absolutely.
And we go back in the past, and then we're 3 years old or 6 years old or 10 years old or whenever that similarity came. I just love the human body.
Well, I just love what you do.
I mean, first of all, I could totally talk to you for days, for real.
Well, you only live down the
No, I was just going to say.
You only live down the street from her.
What I just said, I need to come over. And we did.
You gotta go to her. I mean, go into the healing room. Seriously,
I do want to ask us a question, because I think sometimes, and I've thought this of other people and myself personally, thinking of unhealed trauma, that choices in our life to choose suffering. Do we choose suffering at times when we're in a painful place that we haven't healed? Do we continue to choose those things because we feel on some level that we deserve it?
Kelly, you just asked the $1 million question. We didn't make a choice. To choose is to be conscious and to change. But when we make an emotional decision unconsciously, we're stuck. So we keep deciding that we're not worthy, not good enough, that we require to be blamed. Blame is the be lame game, and we cripple ourselves. So I teach people the difference between a conscious choice, so you can choose it, and then you can change that choice and do something else or continue it. So I chose to fly a plane. I chose to buy a plane. I chose to produce air shows that were small with a military guy. That's why. And then it was time to choose something else. But if I decided that this is the only thing I could do in life, and how many people emotionally decide that they're a victim, whether they're rich or poor. I use Steve Jobs as an example, not wronging him. He created all these billions and millions. And I read about him and said how hateful he was to his family, but he was to himself. And then he died of cancer. And he said before he died, I didn't see, the importance of that connection in my family. So how many of us waste these increments of time in being sick when we came here? And people ask me, what's my purpose? I go, which one? My purpose in the kindergarten was to get my little ass into the first grade. So you have many purposes. Unbelievable. They're unlimited. We don't have one purpose, but one good one is you came to experience the experiences you created to experience consciously. Isn't that cool?
So Sherry, okay, let's talk about that. Your website for a 10-minute conversation, I believe so. And then you can download to get more information. But then her classes are in Phoenix, Scottsdale area. However, she's creating an institute because she does work globally. She does do sessions over the phone. I've had a lot of people do that. And even on the phone it's amazing. 1 hour. You'll walk away where you're just like, oh my gosh. But explain to, and Kelly will share all the links and everything to your website. But explain what they would, if they connect with you via phone for that quick 10 minutes. And then what about the book, the 17 pages of what they would get out of it? And then go into the future that you see of the Institute, and just, people can follow you on, LinkedIn, because you're going to start posting a lot more, because
Christy's going to do it.
I did it for you years ago, so I know how to do it. But just, share a little bit of about that, so people can understand more about the future.
Oh my God, Christy and Kelly, thank you so much. If you go to my website, sherryanshara.com, you can download a free ebook. It's only 17 pages. It's called Getting Your Answers in 10 Minutes. And
Love
if
that.
you sign up for my newsletter, and if you do, make sure you agree, because if it goes into spam, then or Infusionsoft yells at me.
Yeah.
And so every week I write 52 original articles a year for my newsletter. Every week is an original one. I've got them done to March. And so actually to March 4th, and the idea is March 4th. And so I have a Sherryism. And I also have the opportunity for 10 minutes. And this is what happened yesterday. A woman called me yesterday that's a professional woman in the medical field and was going to commit suicide. And we have a session today. That 10 minutes can change your life. So download Get Your Answers in 10 Minutes, sign up for the newsletters. If you go into the left-hand corner, the blog, those are the other ones from before. And I also have on Roku, I have a TV channel called Medical Intuitive Channel. So you
I didn't know that. Congratulations.
Yeah. And so, well, we're still working on that too. Okay. And then if you go to the AnsharaInstitute.org, we are a nonprofit. And we have all volunteers, and we have fabulous doctors. And we just put up the website, so it's in the build. And our goal is to teach this as a new career and a new profession in healthcare, but also for people who would like to have it for themselves and know. And I do workshops. I have a relationship one coming up February 10th. It's here, and we're going to do it on Zoom. And then I teach classes. I have one I think it's the 20-hour Head to the Heart, where I segment. And this last class that I had 2 weeks ago, they came in from Utah, from New York, from Texas, and we spend 20 hours together, and it's a kick butt, whatever. And this one coming up is Head to the Heart, because we have so many brain issues. So I teach a different methodology of cranial. And so 10 minutes can change your life if you're willing. And Christy changed my life when she came in, and I interviewed her because I knew down the road, here she is, she's interviewing me. And that's how it works. So thank you. So it's SherryAnshara.com and AnsharaInstitute.org. And I would love to assist you and get that free stuff. And I have books on Amazon and on my website and all kinds of things.
Love it. Christy?
I miss you.
I know. I need
to get to Arizona. I
yes,
really do.
You have to. Yeah. You will not believe I had friends from out of town because of we had the fundraiser, and from Utah. She stayed here 3 weeks. She has 5 kids, and she stayed here for 3 weeks. This was her spa. And then one of my clients that I've known 15 years ago, and she has 2 kids. I actually assisted her after a near-death experience in a brain injury. And she got to spend the weekend in my healing room. I thought I was never going to get the 2 of them to go home on Monday.
Well, that's why you need to go to her house, just to experience the energy, 100%. And that healing room. It's a clear energy that you're just, when you walk in, yes, you can come in with all sorts of shit, but when you walk out, you're just like, wow. It's a great it's meditation is good. No, I love you. So many people need to know who you are and what you do, because this is a new, people just, it's been a shit show out there, and you know that, and we know what's going on and everything like that. So on that note, Kelly, because we're coming to the end.
Yes. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. And Sherry, particularly you, this has been an absolute treat for so many reasons. There are so many excerpts that I want already in my mind, but y'all, this is an opportunity just to, give you a glimpse into other options out there that can be done, because I am a believer. I like options that don't involve medications, and that's just me. But what Sherry does is truly incredible. And so again, we're grateful for your time.
I'm a living experience. If anybody knew me beforehand, I was a shit show.
Yeah.
Can I leave with one Sherryism?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
This is one of my favorites. So I say, what I say makes my day, and what I say can make or break someone else's day.
Absolutely.
True story. I love that. Oh, so great.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, and we'll be having her back, and we'll share again all the links to all her books, to the ebook, which you all need to go get. It's free. Why not do the 10 minutes? I highly encourage you to do so. Even if you're not sure about it, what's 10 minutes? Give it a whirl. So you do have nothing to lose, and something brought you here today for a reason. That's all I'm going to say. And until next week at 1:11 p.m. Eastern Time, we're all on this journey together. And this is just another way to prove together we do make it